Today we're going to be painting this sunrise. We're going to use a limited palette. That's the CYMK palette. That's cyan, yellow, magenta, and the key we're using is a black and a white. Now each of these colors has two tints, so that's a little easier. We will be using the sticks directly to start with. Then we'll be finishing off probably using this knife and a couple of brushes. To cut the sticks, I use a razor that has a little tape on it, so it's easier to use. I draw with my pencil before we start. This is Gamsol. Looks like that. And that's just a terp that we would use if we need to thin the paint. So let's begin. As you can see, we're just using a tinted cotton canvas. It has a line drawn, it's a horizon line, and that's all I'm going to really start with. Again, we're going to use this picture, and in looking at that picture, it looks like there's a certain amount of lighter color behind some of this. And so we're going to start with maybe a middle shade of blue. Now we're going to build these colors up as we go. Instead of mixing them on the palette, we're going to mix them here. So I'm just lightly putting some of this color down. And I'm going to bring it kind of this way, kind of down at this angle. Now this is the middle tone of, well, I call it cyan. On the stick itself, it's a phthalo. Maybe I will take the darker one, and I'm going to draw in. I'm just going to try to be very careful and draw in where my sort of like a horizon line is. Now you'll notice that it looks kind of lumpy. That's because I'm putting it in relatively lightly. I want to put my line in as good as I can. That's going to be down here just below the mountains, and then I'm going to just lightly go across here. And the reason I'm going really lightly is because I'm going to be putting multiple layers of colors on there, so it will all blend together and it'll fill in the gaps by the time we're done. So I have a little bit of mountains coming across and up this way. And I'm trying to get some accuracy here. But sometimes okay. And it has little mountains that come in the front and the mountains in the back. I'm just going to put this in. Now this is going to get relatively dark. Okay, and I'm going to put this aside and this aside. And now I'm going to come in with the lighter blue down here. Okay, now I'm going to take, I think I need to put in some dark up in here because it gets rather dark. Now, because I have tints of these colors, I don't have to put so much white in to begin with. Otherwise, I'd be putting in a whole bunch of white at the same time, just to kind of lighten it up. Okay, take some of my pink up in here. Now it's a very dark pink. Way up in the sky, the blue part actually gets darker by adding in, well, pink, it's magenta. But by adding in that pinkish color, it makes that look like a darker sky. So I'm leaning that cyan over towards the magenta by adding it there. Now in the bottom, we're going to use that as our, to darken this guy up too for our mountains. And these back mountains are they appear to be more glowy than the foreground, but we'll get to that towards the end, I think. And then down to the front. Now, we'll put in a little bit of this down in here. It's kind of orangey looking, but that will have that magenta in there anyway. Okay, that looks like a grape lollipop. And I'm going to take this lighter pink. So really what we're doing is we're trying to make a base. It's kind of like what people talk about blocking in. It's a little bit, that's really what we're doing. I'm mixing the colors as I go. And this can come down into this mountains. And a little in the front. Okay, and I'll take my lighter. That's still pink. It looks almost white. And the thing about the sky is I'm just using the 3 main colors in the sky and avoiding using black. And the reason I'm doing that is because the sky colors to me they're not as dark as the rest of the land parts. And so if you use black in the sky, you can do that if it's like a really dark, cloudy day. But most of the time, I think you're better off to leave those darker colors to the earth colors. Well, I mean the ground colors. And we'll put in a little bit here just to keep our shape. Come across here. All right, now some of the secret is going to be the yellow. When the yellow hits the cyan, sometimes it kind of greens out. So this particular yellow is slightly, I'm going to start with the light one just to see. But the brighter one is, it'll turn it fairly green. Now that's okay down in here because you see now it's a more muted yellow. So I'm putting that on and I'm going to try to get that right to the line between the mountain and the sky. You see it turns green there. So if you get a little blue on your stick, you should wipe it off probably. Especially if it turns like green, like grass green. That's not really what you want. So we're going to move this up in here. And the beauty of the stick is that you can push hard on it and it will move some of the color away. So if it gets a little too green, you can actually move some of that off and away. And probably need to put some up in here because it's going to turn orange on us. Okay. And down in here, what's interesting is you got to have a yellow in the rest of these colors, otherwise it looks like too purpley. So let's see here what we can do. This is the medium yellow. And okay. Now I'm putting in some yellow down in here because I want to try to set myself up to make that kind of a orangey color. And so that does probably take a certain amount of yellow in there to get that magenta to go orange on us. And it's kind of a nice, pretty pinky orange. Okay. Really turn green on us. Okay, so let's go with this, like the medium one probably. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to come back in here and see if we can't get a little bit more of the reds in using this magenta. So I'm going back to magenta. And this dark one will set up the shadowy part of the clouds. And here you see it's a little darker at the tops. It's hard to see sometimes, I guess, but if you make them find the shadow of the clouds, you're going to have a little better look, make them look more realistic. And in some ways, we're laying this first layer out to just give us sort of a mapping of the colors. I may not be as proficient as I need to be to get them to come out perfectly well, but at least we'll know where to take it, and then we're going to mix on the palette a little bit and see where we end up. And we can apply that into certain, like apply some of these colors into very specific places. Okay, there's this little cloud down here. Now in here. Okay. And down here. And what we're doing is we're trying to get all the paint on there that we can and cover up all of the canvas. And then we're going to tap it in. Okay, so I'm going to add the black in. Now, a lot of people don't use black. I don't typically use black myself. But when you're doing like photographs on your printer, the black plays in on the ground part quite a little bit. So that's why we can add in black. If you do photorealism, you probably are using black as part of your palette because of how the paintings or the pictures come off the printer with the black. Okay, so that's pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is tap it in, and I do that starting at the edges. I have painted the sides of the canvas with black acrylic, and then I try to match up the paint to that before I start tapping in the rest. And that way it has a finished edge to it, right square straight away. So I'm moving some of this paint over here. I'm going to try to cover all of the pink canvas that we started with the best that I can. Now if I stick to the same colors, basic colors, then I don't have the, well, it helps me. It helps to keep it, when you're tapping, you're going to get the paint on your fingers. So if you don't stick with light colors, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of blobs. We don't want blobs. Okay, now I'm going to start with this yellow here. Keep going. Okay, now I'm going to just tap in. Okay, the tapping is something I do, just something I came up with that I do, that is going to let me make sure that the paint is in the grooves of the canvas. And also, I'm not over blending it right now. I'm just trying, I do get blending. You can see I get blending, and I kind of move my finger in different directions. It almost gives it a brushed look in a sense. And I'm going to come back and put a brush on it where it needs to be smoother than this. But I can direct some of this color while I'm using my finger on there. So it goes in kind of like, just kind of get in some correct directions. Now this kind of got blue, so I wipe my finger. I just wipe it like that and clean it off. I stick with light colors if I can, because otherwise it's a whole bunch of that. All right. I guess we got a lot of green in there. Sometimes you when you're doing it with less colors, you have to do a little bit more. I don't know. You have to have a little confidence that it's going to turn out okay, because it's almost this leap of faith that you're going to get the right colors, and that's kind of what makes it fun. So the secret to the first layer is getting enough paint without too much paint, because you want to fill in, I don't, maybe people don't always, but I like to fill in the canvas in that layer for sure. And if I don't get it quite, at least it's colored, it's got a tint to it, so it's going to be somewhat forgiving for me. If it's pure white canvas and you have like those little pinhole dots, it'll be standing out like a sore thumb. So you can see this pink and the yellow are starting to blend together to make that orangey color. And when we put in some mixed colors on this next layer, which is, hopefully we'll get it done. And these vibrant colors will house those very nicely, I think. What I mean by that is you lay it in, and then it acts almost as the shadow effect or the highlight effect, and then you put in the next ones that are more realistic colors, more close colors, and this just kind of makes a nice setup for accepting those colors. So The mountains here. And you can see you can get quite a little bit of movement of the paint. These oil sticks kind of go on a little thick, and so if you put more than one color on, sometimes you can pull the other color up from behind the first, the second color. And we don't want to lose our line too much. Alright, now we take, let's see here. I think I'm going to take a nice sable brush, and I'm going to take my picture and the little tissue and kind of soften some of this edges. Now, you see I can hold it at quite a ways down the handle and just kind of tapping in the edges. So I don't want to go swish, because then you'll end up with like a whole bunch of dark yucky, because these three colors together make all the colors, including dark yucky. So you don't want that. You're just trying to get it to look more like, I don't know, sky, clouds, soft edges here and there, and yet leave some of the poppy colors in there. I mean, because that's cool too. And now, if a person really wanted it to be closer even than this to the real picture, or the real scene, you could actually let it dry a couple days and then come back in and put the colors over the top. And you could get it there. Okay. So see, now my green isn't as obnoxious as it once was. No. I'm gonna come in. I hear my dog barking. I have an Australian Shepherd, and he really doesn't like to be alone. For those of you who know what I'm talking about. Now I think that these, I like to use a soft sable type brush to get some of these edges, and I think it almost, even though the colors are crazy, it still starts to look a little more realistic in a way. I mean, you're getting your colors and everything, and you're going to have to fix that, but just a few smooth spots here and there can really make a big difference. I don't know what this thing is. Too much paint in it. Giving it some direction. And sometimes when you got a lot of blotch, and especially when the horizon, or I think of this down here as the horizon, and the sky behind the mountains is farther than the horizon. but the farther it goes, the smoother it gets, and then it looks a little bit more correct as far as what we would see in real life. So blotchy is fun, but it doesn't always make it look really quite correct. Let's see here. Try to get some of this paint out of this brush. And this. Okay. When you come to the place where the sky and the mountain, this is actually supposed to be a cloud there, where the sky and the mountains meet. In fact, I'll use maybe a smaller one. And I can just take it and go over just that line. And then maybe even come back over the top. So you don't want a lot of what they call licking, like, but just to hit that line. And I like the mountains to have a softness to them. I mean, I know there are mountains out there that have they look very, the ridges are very specific, like, you know, big up and down. Well, that isn't the kind of mountains I have here. So I actually live on kind of a high altitude plains in between the mountains, so the mountains don't look as big as they are in real life. Anyway, so I'm just kind of getting those edges. And I can actually kind of do the same between mountains, because there's different mountains in the front and the back. So if I look at my picture instead of making it up. Okay, and then I have a brush here, I think. I'm going to come across these mountains and try to get some little definition to them. Okay, and then there's these trees here. Okay, so that's pretty much the first part of this. Now I'm going to mix some colors, and then we'll be applying those. Okay, now we're going to try to hit some of these main spots as far as trying to get a more localized color to put on our initial layer. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking pieces of the color, and I want to use quite a little bit of the color, so I'm smashing it down to try to get the more volume of that color available for when I'm doing my mixing. This is a lot of red. Well, I say red. Magenta's in the red family, so I kind of mix that word in there sometimes. Okay. The other alternative you use is you can just go like this and get a little bit. It's the same color. Now I'm going to take and I think I'll smash it over here. Get it out of the way a little. Hit this yellow. I don't really want the yellow and the blue to mix together. The blue and the cyan. I mean the yellow and the cyan. Because there's not much green in this piece. Okay. And, oops. Gross. Alright, now I'm going to take my cyan up here. Smash it. And finally, my white is probably going to use a lot of that. Okay, so we start in this corner here. We're going to try to match some of that. So I'm going to take a little of this blue. And I need a tissue. When I reach into this next color, I don't want to contaminate it, so I have to wipe it off all the time. I have quite a purple. And let's add this white. I probably need a little purple. So I'm going to add a little cyan up in here. Now I have two shades. Maybe a little bit of white. Not a lot. And my painting is a little bit dark right now. So that's good right there. And I can add a little bit of this into this purpley. Okay. Then I want to get some, maybe even a little bit of a lighter purple. I can take this guy. Oh, that's kind of down in here. Maybe it needs a little more pink in there. And okay, now I want to hit some of these oranges. Let's see what we can do. And Just have a little trouble. Okay, so let's take a little, instead of putting another yellow in there, let's try some white in there. See what color we really have. So it's really kind of pinky. We might have a little of that somewhere. Put that to the side. And a little more of this orange. Peach. Maybe start with the orange and add in some of the pink. This guy is I always have a little trouble with this. Okay. That's better. Well, let's see what we can do with that. And now we want to take some of this out and clean that up a little. And try to make a white, really light, a light yellow. That's what we're aiming at. Okay. Now let's see where we go from here. One last thing. Let's make a dark purple. Add in a little bit of yellow to dull it up. Okay. So now we're going to take this little knife and start putting in some of these colors up, just here and there. Trying to influence it to be a little closer. I'm just adding it, kind of like trying to spread it like butter over the top a little bit, and then down in here. I don't need it to be real super smooth yet. I'm going to be tapping it and brushing it a little bit later. And across the top. And I'm going to start lightening this up a little as I go down. Now I can put some of the lights up in to this darker part so that it has a tendency of transitioning. Needs to lighten up here. Transition. So I'm looking at like the blues here, transitioning them up, back and forth to each other. This is kind of fun because it's wet on wet still, and so it goes on smooth for the most part. Okay, now let's put some. See, now when you put this next to this blue, it sure looks peachy. As it gets closer to the horizon, I'm going to go with this more of an orangey peach, but still walk it up. So I'm going up with the orange and transitioning that from the pinky peach down. Let's see. Okay, that's nice. Maybe add a little white to it. Now, this is sort of. Well, maybe I'll take this one here. So the darker actually goes like towards the top. Because it's more of a shadow. Now, let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna go in here with this, really just magenta and white. You get to a certain point where you just start to improvise a little bit. And that would be about now. So I'm putting in some of this pinks just here and there. And then I'm gonna so this peach color, which now is okay, so the peach color can come in towards the bottom. Let's see if we can. It's sort of, it has a more of a yellowy kind of an orange, and so I'm going to put it up in here, but it's, you know, it's very supportive color of right where you're going to put these yellows. And sometimes you get a little too much. Okay, now let's try some of this down in here. It's just that yellow with the white in it. And you could take a little of that and put a little of this pink in there. Well, maybe just a little purple in there or something. And that really dulls it down too much. Stick it up in here. Okay. Now, really put a light color right there. And see if I can get this orange in here. Okay. Now let's maybe take some of this dark purple and okay. So we take the dark purple and we're going to wow. That was a mistake. I'll bring this down. Just snap it. Okay, I'm going to take a little of this brighter. I'm going to take the front mountains and okay. Now I have I'm gonna try a little black here and hit that with my 3 colors. And then I'm going to put in these trees. Oops. Okay, now the secret to this is sort of my horizon line, so I kind of want to see where I'm at. Not the worst, not the best. Okay, so then I'm going to take some of this black and purple, and so I can just make more. Oh, it's a little bit of and start working in some ground. Put this dark in there too. Okay, so that's most of the colors are on there now, and so I'm going to start tapping. So I'm just tapping edges. The point of this is to go slow, not to go fast. So that, I'm going to hold this down, so that you don't over blend it. So to go judiciously most of the time is better. Starting just like the last layer, I'm just putting, kind of starting with the same color and following it through, just edges. Now where this blue is, if you hit that and you go anything like this with your orange, you're going to end up losing all your blue. So just hit once and wipe your hand. Once and wipe your hand. Now with these pinks and these oranges, I want to just tap them and not blend them too much, because the colors, you want it to be correct, but the colors will pop off of each other a little bit if you don't over blend it. So this yellow, I just about lost that there, so okay, I just put more in, and I'm probably gonna do this layer, and then unless there's something real obvious, I'll probably let it sit for a couple of days and then come back and finish it off. And you may be able to tell on the video too, but as you tap these in and brush them out, you get a duller view of it. All of these nice colors are because you just tapped in, you know, pretty clean colors. As soon as you tap them, they dull down. And so if you want some spots where it's really bright, you may have to come in later and pop it in when it's dry, because it's that mixing that does that. It's what makes the color so cool, is that you don't need very many actual colors to start with, but when they mix together, they still you know, people complain a lot about, they have mud. They like to call it mud. I like to call it grays. It's like colorful grays. Okay. I want to get this really, when it goes to this light yellow, I need to really have a clean finger on there. Okay, now I'm going to just start at the top of the mountain. Just gotta, I don't want to get too much in the yellow, because I have a nice sort of a dark spots. See how it's dark right there? It's probably a little too blotchy, but because it's dark next to the light, it really makes that sunset look kind of brighter. Now, can't forget the second layer of mountains. I don't need to get crazy, because I've also put the trees in, and even though I use my little finger, it's easy to lose them. We don't want that. And then I can just butt my grasses up to the trees. And tap here and there. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do today, I think, is, let's see if I have a bigger brush. Go back to my soft brushes and just finish that out. I'm going to take a little tissue. Start, just keep doing the same thing I did. I'm sticking with the blue where I can see it for now. And I'm not smoothing it out obnoxiously, because I want it to have a feeling of atmosphere. I have to be kind of careful that I don't go too much in a line, because the line will show. You don't want that either. So it'll have like this looks like a line right there, but we're not going to leave it that way. So if your stroke is a little too patterned, you see that line right there? It's just really easy to do that. And as I come to the lighter ones, I can come back up. As I come to the dark ones, I can bring it down. And that gives it the continuity in those blues. Be real careful of these oranges, remember? And if you get to a point where it's like, oh, I can add in a little bit too with my brush. Because I still have enough paint left. So, I mean, I have options there. Okay, let's stick with this dark. Okay. So you can get rid of some of that green in there with my brush. I probably got too dark. So that's neat. Wipe this off a lot. And okay, so here's a secret for you. You have your blues, you have your oranges, you have your purples, you have your yellows. They can dull each other, those combinations. So, most of the time in the sky, there's some vapors running around that are transitionary. So, for example, a purple and a pink work together. So if you have, you go from blue to purple to pink, that's good. Blue to purple to orange, there's good too. So you're not necessarily butting up to the complement. So if you're butting up to the complementary color, then you're going to end up with dull colors. Nothing wrong with dull colors in the right spot. Thing about clouds is the edges. You can, now if I tap these, you can see they practically disappear. So make sure you're careful not to completely smash in a particular color. You won't have any pop to it. And the more pop you leave now, the easier it is to finish it if it doesn't feel finished to you after you're done. With the first session, you know, I think there's a certain goal to not having to put too many, well, it's one thing to come back and paint more. It's another thing to just constantly correct. So take your time and get the edges as good as you can. At the same time, you know, it has to have a certain fluff to it. It's just a give and a take. Now, when I get done with this, I usually take it in the other room, and it'll look loppier there because there's more color rendering from the sun. More, it's a different kind of light there. So I'll probably go in and smooth some of this out, but you're better off to take your time, like I say, and then the smoothing part doesn't have to be in a whole lot of spots to make it appear smooth but still having atmosphere to it. Now, some of these clouds have a direction, so you can give them that. I can take my picture and I kind of been doing that just on the fly. Now I have quite a little bit of paint that came from the palette knife, and so some of it may be even a little blotchy. Every now and then you get like a piece of skin like that. We don't want that on there. Okay. Interestingly enough, some of these light colors actually are change the other colors more than the other way around. So I want to make sure that I don't go spreading all this light stuff too crazy, because it'll suck out all my color, bright color. I'm going to try to be a little painterly here and give these guys a little direction. Okay, I think I can take a skinnier one and start work in this. No. So if I just take and make my line, and then I can bring it down some. It looks then like it has some ravines and such in there, which is good. This is supposed to be pretty smooth here. And then okay, and then I go to my next. Okay. I have a little of this dark, and I can reinforce these mountains. I kind of got too much light purple on them, and then they didn't show up. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit the tops. Okay, now I need to hit this darker, make it darker. Okay. Maybe a stiffer brush, maybe. Better than that, go back to my my knife. And these are my trees. Everywhere I look, there's trees where there's a creek. And we live by the mountains, so there are a number of creeks. And put them in there. Some higher, lower. And I can bring some of this down in. Give these tops of the trees a little more natural look. Okay, and then I can bring some of this into this grassy. Now, that looks pretty cool. So, I'll take, let's see if this brush is dry. Okay, so now I'm just going to go and just lightly, I mean, it's barely touching. This is the kind of thing I would do in the other room. I want to, well, it has a fairly smooth look to it. I don't want to lose everything, but I'm kind of just getting rid of the blobs. Right. I'm just going to pop in these blues back because I think that sharpens the whole thing up. And see if that's going to be good enough for... Yeah, see? That really makes it takes some of that green out, which I think makes it look prettier. Pretty. I like blue better than green, I guess. And it always seems like blue wants to peek through, so you can almost see it down in here. That's pretty good for right now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and sign it, and then I'll come back and see if there's any little fixes to be made to it.